If you like my videos, please like and subscribe. Now that the politicians and the media are gone, it's one of the only ways we can keep shedding a light on our little town of East Palestine, Ohio. And please consider joining our Facebook group, East Palestine Off the Rails. Get the truth from the people that live here. Watch my uncensored content on Rumble as Phoenix on the Sword. Find me as Phoenix on the Sword. Thank you so much. And please give what you can at our GoFundMe site, East Palestine Off the Rails. I've set a lofty goal of $5 million to help people relocate if they so wish. Hey, I've always said go big or go home. We may not make it, but give what you can. Don't care if it's $1 or $10 or $10,000. Thank you so much for caring. So we've just met. This is Scott Smith. I saw him on Tucker Carlson, and I saw a YouTube video with him in it in Canada. And then somebody texted me and said, hey, Scott's coming into town. I'd like you to talk to him. So that's what we're doing. So nice to meet you.
Yeah, hey, thanks for reaching out.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who you are, what you do,
Yeah,
why you do it?
In 2006, my business life, 100 employees that I had, company I owned was wiped out in oil-contaminated floodwaters. And that's when I realized that everything I understood about water testing and water remediation is seriously flawed and wrong. And what I mean by that, you're a doctor, so water and contamination are never in equilibrium. It's not a closed loop system. So when you take a grab sample, look at like back to East Palestine, the creeks and everything, when you take a 250 milliliter jar, 500 milliliters, whatever, that only tells you what's in that jar. And the surface, that only tells you what's in the surface water. And that I learned from this, it's all about the water column. So like Sulphur Creek, Leslie, Sulphur Run, Leslie Run. Life exists in the water column, above the bottom, beneath the surface. So you need to test the way life encounters water. And a fish and a human do not encounter or go into a creek for a split second. So when you just take that surface sample for a split second, you can, I could easily be working for the railroad or a contractor. And I know it's easy to engineer, quote, false non-detect. So false non-detect is when you're declaring the water safe and you get a non-detect. You need comprehensive data. So that's number one. Number two, in my own oil contaminated floodwater, you see the white booms and white pads. Those are single-use plastics filling landfills. They don't get the oil out of the water. And in that factory at the time, you'll appreciate this, I had a medical phone, an open cell phone, high surface area. And it was actually, and this is all publicly available, the FDA issued a press release in 2003. It was approved as a medical device. It gets infused with a lotion. So I developed this material with a medical grade polymer. And this material was sitting in a corner of my factory, the flood. It was absorbing all the oil.
So that's the video that I saw. You had a piece of that, and I saw it absorbing oil.
And
water would come out.
Back to 2006, and I was wiped out in a flood. The insurance company declared my manufacturing facility in a basement didn't pay, so I liquidated my life savings. Wow. My first thing too was about the employees, and that disaster. I have walked the streets. I have been in these shoes, not knowing where the next nickel is going to come from. Not knowing how my employees are going to get baby formula and feed their families. So I worked very hard to secure benefits for them, and I liquidated everything I had in my life, rebuilt everything, and we were back up and running. And that's one of the background videos that's on my Twitter feed and at the top of my Facebook page. And so when this all happened, I obviously started to get a little obsessed with oil and chemicals and water. So I developed the same medical grade polymer, open cell foam, that is approved as a medical device. And what happens is our U.S. military was originally approved at the request of the U.S. Army. So if you're exposed to sarin gas in the combat field, you rip open this pouch, you have this material, this open cell foam, you scrub yourself down, you live, it neutralizes it. It's the only material that was approved for this application as a medical device because it doesn't react and it doesn't have plasticizers or any of these other nasty chemicals in it. So it's just very important. I want to explain that background. And as I went through this disaster, you know, Senator, this is not about politics. I work with everybody. Senator Chuck Schumer reached out, had a press conference, and that's part of that video too. And back then in my disaster, people from all walks of life, people from all political parties were working together. I'd like to see that happen again. Because East Palestine, many communities, this is about the community and the residents. And, you know, for those people that may be watching, this could be your community next. And it's about people working together. And I will tell you, in East Palestine, I mean, there's a tipping point after being, so I started going to all these disasters, and now this is, I'm approaching, it's over 60 disasters. And if I can help the community not have to go through what I went through. And I just became obsessed with water testing, flawed, remediation, flawed. So I started to learn and teach myself all these things. Roll forward, I have several patents. Last year, I did a transaction. I sold my patents to Eco Integrated Technologies. I became Chief Sustainability Officer. So the word sustainability, I believe, it gets misused by many corporations and many people. Sustainability to me is all about making a community. If you're the health and the livelihood of a people in the community is not sustainable, nothing else really matters. So sustainability is the environment, is the health and well-being of a community. Part of the terms of my employment agreement with Eco Integrated Technologies is to go into communities to do this. I have a budget, and we don't want any money from and people that want to put money towards testing. I say, nope, we will not accept it. Please find a local charity or go help a resident in the community directly. Because we at ECO and what I am here to do and be in the field and set a whole new standard for what a good corporate citizen is and meaning what you say with sustainability. So when it comes to sustainability, I am out in the field in communities when these things happen for the benefit of the community. And all my testing results get released to the residents. And with the residents, I code everything so it's private. Only with their permission will I talk about specific residents, and the residents can do whatever they want with the testing.
Eco Health Technologies.
Eco Integrated Technologies.
Eco Integrative Technologies. Who would be so kind to fund something like this? I don't need to know, but why
it's just it's my passion and what I do. So I'm involved in several different businesses, and part of the terms of my employment agreement are doing this and setting the new standard. Because if you think about where we are as a society and corporations, I have something called sustainability without compromise. I trademark that because I believe so much in this. Sustainability without compromise means you don't compromise your principles. And if you're shareholders or a company, if you do the right thing for a community and you help people, that's what we need to do in this world to bring people together and make it a more sustainable place. So you do the right thing. That's good for business. It's good for your soul.
That's extremely admirable. I would hope it would catch on. Now, you said you had, this is maybe your 60th?
It's over 60. It's clearly, I got it, yeah.
So is there hope? Now, let's say the things that you found in other disasters, outcomes, good outcomes? I mean, if there were things, the remediation, is this a good...
What separates this one is dioxins. This is my first really on-the-ground experience with dioxins. And dioxins...
yeah, the word gets thrown around a lot. And
I call dioxin the fentanyl of chemicals, because there's a lot of public relations people at government agencies, at the railroad, trying to spin things and confuse people. Here's the bottom line. In over 60 disasters, I work with a lot of chemicals, all these fancy terms called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, benzenes.
Yes.
They're measured in parts per million or parts per billion. You probably heard of PFAS. That's an emerging contaminant.
Yes.
It's measured in parts per trillion. Why do I say that dioxins are the fentanyl of chemicals? They're measured in parts per quadrillion. That's 1,000. I mean, that's why. Like with fentanyl, I'm a big guy. It wouldn't take a minuscule amount of fentanyl to kill me. So it's a minuscule amount of these dioxins can be very problematic with people. So that's how I explain this. I like to try to develop things in simple terms so I can explain them to non-technical people.
And dioxins are commonly formed from the incomplete burn of...
Yes. Now, here's what you're going to hear here, that ubiquitous in the environment. I do
We've heard
this
that a lot from the EPA.
Let me tell you, I only have a fraction of my results in, and I do this voluntarily, and I can tell you in all the other disasters, I get in and out, and when I go home every time, it takes about 2 days, and I can tell you I feel the headache, I feel these same symptoms. I don't even need my test results to know these chemicals were not ubiquitous in the environment. And what I say, none of these health symptoms, children, adults coughing up blood, rashes everywhere.
Oh, I've seen a lot of rashes.
If these chemicals were ubiquitous in the environment, these health symptoms would have been ubiquitous all along.
Deborah Shore, the District 5 EPA, that's in charge of the EPA in our district, she held several press conferences, and she said 2 reasons they weren't testing for, and I'm sure you know this, 2 reasons they were not going to test for dioxins is, number 1, they don't know what the dioxin levels were here before. Well, if they are high, let us know, whatever the cause. And secondly, she said this on the press conference, and when my wife went down to the health center to talk with the EPA, they said, well, ma'am, they're ubiquitous. They're caused in barbecues. Well, if that's the case, if that's their criteria, how many barbecues was the explosion? So imagine if they're telling us a barbecue can put dioxins, how many barbecues would, were in that explosion, and how many dioxins could have potentially fell for the first 3 hours as there was zero wind, as before the cloud inverted, as it spread over our whole community.
Let me tell you here, many great experts have reached out to me, toxicologists, OSHA, experts that worked with DuPont and Dow. And here is what I know. The EPA knows this. I know the railroad contractors know this. You can fingerprint actually dioxins that are from your backyard, from cigarette smoke, versus dioxins from a chemical burn, a fire. And I've had experts reach out that can do that.
I had no idea that could be done.
Neither did I until they reached out. So I think, and again, what makes East Palestine different is this is a turning point in all the disasters. There are great people coming together from all walks of life. And there is a great team of people that have reached out to me on Twitter, on Facebook, experts. And we all have a specific lane. I'm doing the testing. I'm making sure the independent lab, everything is certified properly. And I have at my disposal all these experts advising me and guiding me. I just learned that fingerprinting can be done.
Wow.
And we're going to arrange to do that. Also,
and what do you think, would the EPA know that?
They know that.
Okay. I would think they would know that.
This is why I spend a lot of time, I appreciate you inviting me today, because the more people we can educate, the more we can do to protect this community and help get them the proper help. I've also had a pretty well-renowned, respected medical doctor reach out to me from California that wants to start blood testing. I can't, it's not ready to release her name, but she actually is going to use her personal funds or funding budget. Wow. And she is horrified that in this country, residents of East Palestine are being denied blood testing. I don't know this for a fact, but CDC and other agencies have told the doctors to stop testing blood.
So can I speak about that for a
moment?
So I send people for blood. Initially, I sent them for vinyl chloride as well as benzene. And initially, the vinyl chloride all came back negative, which I was very happy about. So that was the urine is for the metabolites. And so they started turning people away. And I said, in my 30 years of being a doctor, I've never had a lab defy a doctor's prescription for lab work. And so I called Quest Laboratories, one of the most prestigious lab, it's nationwide. And that's the urine test for vinyl chloride is so specific that Quest Laboratories doesn't even do it themselves. They sent it to, I believe, a lab called NMS Laboratories somewhere in Pennsylvania. It's one of the few labs that does a urine test for vinyl chloride. And so I got on the phone, I said, can I talk to somebody that can talk to me, a doctor? And so one of the head doctors called me back, and we spoke at length, and he told me, when the EPA told us that, hey, during the explosion, vinyl chloride has a very short life in your blood, so it's not going to do you any good to get tested. Well, he said, that's true, but the urine test is different. He said, the urine test, that is for chronic exposure. So let's say it's in your surroundings, it's got into your ducts, it got under your walls. As you live in that environment and the vinyl chloride builds up in your body, you're gonna start peeing that out, start showing in your urine. It is very possible that some people that tested negative in their urine first, when I did it shortly after the big chemical bomb, potentially would test positive now in their urine. And I just interviewed one of my patients who just tested positive for vinyl chloride in her urine a couple hours before we're meeting right now. And so it is starting to happen, it's starting to show. But the reason I bring this up, when I talked to this doctor, I said, hey, a lot of my people are not wealthy around here. A lot of them don't have insurance. Do you have any idea? I know this is not your wheelhouse, but do you have any idea how much the vinyl chloride test would cost? And he said, first of all, I don't. But secondly, what are you telling me? He said, you guys have just been through like one of the worst national disasters that we've ever been through. And you're telling me they're not doing free blood testing and they're not testing you for vinyl chloride? He was shocked. And so I think we should be tested on a regular basis so that we can see as we're being exposed either in our homes or the environment over a long period of time, whether we're building up those chemicals in our body. But he is somebody that was removed for the situation, not from here, was just shocked that the government was not doing testing on us.
There's another issue here is about undue influence and the lobbyists, the PR people. There's a lot of influence that companies like the railroad have.
I believe it.
Unfortunately, I want to be wrong about this, but I think you're seeing that undue influence play out. And what I've seen over and over again, it's always the PR people that are calling all the shots. For example, the workers, I was in the creek, I waved full respirator gear, and I guarantee you it's the PR people in the quote command center that prevented those poor workers that were I'm really worried about them. They don't know what they're going to get hit with in a few years. But why? The PR people don't want to say to wear respirators. Right? I'm talking back in February.
Yeah.
So it's all about PR. And I said over and over again, call the PR people off, and the PR people if they just do the right thing, go into the community, let the scientists speak honestly and directly, instead of spending tens of millions of dollars on all this PR to try to sweep it under the rug. They not only save money, but reputationally, and I say good for their soul, if they went door to door near communities and say, okay, your house is appraised for $100,000, here's a check for $200,000. They'd save a lot of money. They'd actually not only end up improving their reputation, they would save a lot of money.
In terms of wrongful death suits and things like that?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And another thing I get concerned about is these class action attorneys. The class action attorneys, God forbid the residents and their families get sick with cancer in 3 to 5 years. Class action attorneys typically take all the money, and you might get a check for $800 to $1,500.
Yeah, I haven't signed with any attorney. I don't know anything about.
What I've encouraged people to do: find somebody you trust, friend of a friend, family member. This event has caused so much damage to the community. From what I've seen, you're far better off doing your private action. And why is that? Instead of the attorney getting all the money and you getting a pittance, If you hire a competent attorney, that's a typical 1/3. So if you have damages of for every $1 million, you're going to get, you know, close to $750,000. If you're with a class action suit, you have damages of $1 million, you might get $1,500.
Wow,
$10,000,
I have no
$15,000.
idea.
So that the most important thing is to help educate the community about that.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I do what I do with the testing. It's for the residents. It goes to them first. And I'm hearing stories from residents. I don't know any of this firsthand, but I believe it to be true based on that the class action attorneys on the ground here actually say, if you opt out of that lawsuit or you don't sign with me, we're going to bill you at $500 an hour for your testing. Wow. And they're doing testing and not revealing the details. So to me, that's morally reprehensible. It's just reprehensible. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that their attorneys have done testing on their land, and it's been a long time. I just interviewed somebody last night, and he said, "Well, I can't get the results, and I want to know about my pond out back." So
give me your email, and I'll send you the test. The second I get the testing results, I do wherever I am. I try to within an hour get it to the residents that were tested first and foremost. The full, complete lab report with all the details.
Okay.
And we're using an independent certified lab. The EPA, who I know, they accept all my test results. And I do have a dialogue with the EPA. There are, you know, and the workers, the scientists in the EPA, they all want to do the right thing. And what I clearly say, government agencies, the railroad, if they just get the PR people out of the way, the community is going to be much better off. And instead, gaslighting the community, saying, your symptoms are mass psychosis, it's ubiquitous in the environment. That creates a whole round of the rage and the fury of the residents. I don't know what these PR people are thinking.
It also pits residents against each other, because when people hear that, people that have not been affected with acute symptoms turn against the people that say they have acute symptoms. And it's just, there's so many facets of what has happened here, you know, physiologically and mentally, with the people now, the infighting with the town. It's a shame. It's really harmed our town.
Yeah, and then you'll see the money starts flowing.
Yeah.
And apparently the railroad has hired a community listener.
I have no idea about that.
So a community listener. No one really knows who it is, but what the community listener does is they watch all of you and what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they tip the railroad off.
There's a think tank out there, I'm sure, that they hired that watches us.
This time around, though, there's something very positive coming on. And there's, you know, if anything positive is the team of people, the experts. I've never had so many reach outs. And this is probably one of my the community and people here are fantastic, first class. It's a safe area. I mean, I could leave my doors unlocked. Yeah. Look at all the crime in this country. It's just such a great place. And that, you know.
We don't lock our car doors.
No, it's just a great community, and these people are resilient here, and we're going to do everything in our power to hopefully help them. You know, don't give up.
All right, so a couple quick questions, because I know you've got other things to do. Are most people doing only dip tests when they test the water? Is that what?
Most of them are ground samples. I'm doing too, but I'm doing the whole water column, not just from the surface. Doing the middle of the water, doing the sediment in the creek. So think about the creek. Think about livestock. Think about if you're just doing from the surface, it's kind of worthless. Because you go in the creek for more than 1 second, or your cattle or livestock, you're hitting that sediment and releasing what's there. You need to know what's in that sediment.
So I was one of the ones early on that was kind of a fool, like you're talking about, right? In February, just after the crash, the creek, if you go down the back of the hill here, Leslie Run runs right at the bottom of this hill. If you follow this road all the way out the back. And so I was overturning rocks, and I smelled that. And as it came up, I'm always normally healthy, diarrhea, headaches. I could go on, but I also had a big welt, like a rubbery welt on my back. I think it was probably like a histamine response where tendrils came out of it, and we have it documented. And you talk about people being exposed in the beginning. When the press, when they would come, I'd say some of the press was lazy, because when you would look at the creek down here 2 miles down, it would appear okay until you walked through it or picked up the rocks, and all the chemicals would boil out. So as the rapids would go down, it looked very clean at points until you disturbed the sediment.
Yep, that's exactly what you're proving out exactly what I'm saying. It's really all about the sediment right now, especially with these dioxins and these heavy molecules that sink, and they're persistent in the environment. They don't go away.
So what do you have to say to us? How would you like to end?
Or
do you have anything that you want to add?
Keep demanding information. What I say, as this information rolls in, I will be back. Love to sit down with you again and have maybe a community, town hall to talk about the results. I think if there's any good news in this, is it's about if I can help get the information so people can go to the doctors about what they're exposed to. The only thing to fear is not being told the truth. And we are after the truth, and we won't stop until I can do everything in my power to help get the truth. Because we get the truth and we find out what's really in the soil, what's really in the sediment, what's really in the water, what people have been breathing into their lungs, they can go get the appropriate help, and things can be remediated. I also started testing furnace filters because other than taking a biopsy of someone's lung, if you want to know what you were breathing in and what you're exposed to, it's the furnace filters.
How long would you estimate that it may take to get some of these findings?
It takes between 15 to 30 days. The lab's really backed up, but 30 days. And I have a whole host of results that are going to be coming in the next 7 to 10 days. So give me your email and I'll keep you on the list as things become available.
Okay, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
Well, I know you came in just for 2 short days and you're taking samples and meeting with people. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Great.
Thank you for sitting down. It's a real honor.
This is my 5th trip in, but this is our 6th or 7th round of testing so far.
Okay. So if this is your 5th round, do you have any not preliminary, but do you have any results from your
We
others?
have the results from the others. There's a whole spectrum of dioxins. We look for the presence of it. There's some other, hydrocarbon type materials.
So you did find dioxins?
Yeah, we found benzene. Yeah, we found presence of all of them.
And do you believe those may potentially have been from what happened here?
The experts that are reviewing them, that OSHA and toxicologists, they believe that.
Oh.
They're all reaching out. So
okay.
And then the battle's going to be the ubiquitous in the environment thing.
Okay. All right.
So okay.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks.